I have just finished recording with Özlem, and it'll be a little bit shuffled. This is my last fifth conversation, but you will probably still have Bella to listen to when this one is released. Me and Özlem also dove into the doing being that is very prominent in my life at the moment because in I'm just at the precipice of something, an insight, a shift. It feels like a pivotal shift. But we also speak about monogamy and whether or not that is is that the way of the world? Is that the way of humans or not? We speak about algorithms. I'm going to link to a blog post by Per Axboom where he speaks about what he's left algorithm-based social media. It's filled with tankespjärn. And I think there's tankespjärn in this conversation at large for you as well. So join me and Özlem as we start our meander in a place of hitting the ground running, you can say. How are you?
I'm good. Good. I'm a bit stressed. Too many things going on at the same time. Coming back from a holiday vacation and not with the family, but the family was here. I went with my sister to visit my parents in Turkey, and coming back and just getting right into the to the flow without a soft start.
Mm,
It's like I need a vacation again,
mm,
almost.
mm,
So yeah, I'm just trying to catch up from the vacation.
mm.
No warm up, just come back and just sprint right into it.
So
How are
why
you?
do I want to stay on that one first though. Why do
Okay.
we do that? Why don't we I mean it's like starting your car in fifth gear or you know in the winter starting the car and then just driving but there's still frost on the windows or it's like the engine still hasn't warmed up.
Yeah, well, in my instance, I came back and my wife had been really sick for like a whole week. I was gone and she just
Mm,
got back. She was behind from work. With the kids, the dog misbehaving. There was no time to just sit and, you know what, wife, just wait till I just defrost the window and start with this first gear and just, like hang on. I don't know. I just felt like I had been away and I need to like catch up so I can um, join her in her speed. I asked her
so
to
but
slow down as well.
do you usually do that? Because I mean I'm not asking specifically about this time. I'm thinking that this is what we do collectively. You take a
No,
vacation and then you hit the floor running when you're on again.
no. Usually when I have vacation, I come back with a few days marginal as well. So, you can get that
Mm,
soft start. So I try to avoid coming back on a Sunday and start working on a Monday. I
mm,
usually try to come back on a Friday and just have the week at home, like just,
mm,
do the laundry slowly, taking it easy. And
mm,
then when it's Sunday, you're like almost looking forward to go to work rather than being stressed
mm,
going to work. So usually I'm good at that, but this was just a quick 1 week visit. And I didn't want to waste a couple of days on not being there with my other family. It
yeah,
sounds wrong to say my other family, but I think you know what I mean.
yeah.
So yeah, but usually I build that in. So what I did this time though was usually when I'm stressed, I don't go to bed in the right time. So I've been going to bed in the right time, so I at least get my sleep because I've noticed from the years of wisdom that when you uh, don't get enough sleep, then you don't become your best self in
Mm,
a way. You became a worse version of yourself where you deprive yourself of sleep. So I thought that I'm gonna take care of sleep and what I eat, so so I don't get into this wrongfully and take longer to get up to speed. So I'll learn that lesson at least.
Well, good. Good. I'm really bad at that sleep thing at the moment. I wake up between 6 and 7, like, by myself without an alarm clock, and I am a better self on 8 hours of sleep.
Well, we all are.
And last night, I went to bed at 12:30 and then read, and I didn't turn off the lights until after 1. So no 8 hours because it's 8:40 and I've been awake for an hour, so it's like and this is not a one-off. My issue though is at that time, like after 10 in the evening, I can be so on. I'm sharp in my mind. I can do work. I can, I'm not distracted. So, but then I still don't wake up any later.
You know? But every now and then it's not right. It's just if you've been doing it for like 4 or 5 days in a row, then it really starts kicking in
Yeah,
and
but that
yeah. Yeah.
that's me. That's
But
me. It's like
so how
I seldom turn off the lights before midnight nowadays.
all right.
It's like
So how have you noticed that you have a lack of sleep sufficiency? What happens with you?
it's as if I lag over the day. There's a there's a there's a lag in me over the day. There's a tendency to procrastinate,
Uh,
and to not really be on top of my game, so to speak, until it's after 10 p.m. Then I'm on, and it turns into this self-perpetuating.
well,
Uh,
maybe you've been resting during the day. So 10 o'clock, you're rested enough,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you sort of
yeah,
like wake up.
yeah, precisely, precisely.
Oh yeah.
But it does remind me that I will be treating myself to a 20-minute yoga nidra on my spike mat today during the day because that actually does. Hmm, it's as if it's restorative.
Yeah. You,
It's a reset that just okay, back to factory setting somehow.
yeah.
Um,
Resetting. I get it. Rebooting.
yeah.
You know, if I could, I would I would love to like take a 1 hour nap in the middle of the day. So if I could, that would be brilliant for me. But you can't when you have kids and we're like telling my wife, I'm going to go to bed and sleep for 1 hour. But have you thought about that? Like maybe taking a nap during the day.
It
That's
doesn't work as well for me.
okay. You wake up as a zombie.
I wake up as a zombie. It's the 20-minute yoga nidra on the spike mat kind of gives me what a nap does
Yeah.
without having me wake up as the zombie. I can do a 20-minute lie down where I can be on and off or in and out of sleep dream state and wake state. Uh, but then I love my bed. So
Yeah.
I don't wanna leave it. So it's better that I plunk down on the floor on my spike mat and
But
do it there.
do you lie in bed and read?
Yeah.
And you still can't sleep, can you? As soon as I have to struggle to read a few pages if I try to read in bed. I fall asleep immediately, and that's a blessing in a way. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I have all these books that I can't read through because I fall asleep.
Yeah. No, I have no issues reading in bed. I
Okay,
can read for hours if it's a good book, no problem.
okay, yeah,
Uh, so I don't.
yeah. You got lots going against you there, don't you?
Yeah, precisely. So it's like finding that thing of how do I how do I care for myself in the
Mhm.
best way?
But, my wife, if she wakes up, she has a really hard time, going back to sleep because she gets, like, annoyed. She wakes up she can wake up, like, in the middle of the night and then have to struggle going to bed. If and, like, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I look at the alarm clock, I'm like, "Oh my god, I have 3 more hours." That is so nice. I can sleep for 3 more hours. So I'm trying to tell her that it's a mind thing, like a mind shifting, because I love when I wake up in the middle of the night because then I think, I can sleep some more. I get so relieved. And
Mm,
she gets annoyed and she works herself up while I get like, I can sleep a little bit
yeah,
more. So
yeah.
that's
But
it's
that's the
fun.
point. You're proving the point that the problem is never the problem. The problem is always you're thinking about the problem.
Yeah, that's
Because
exactly.
it's not a problem to wake up in the middle of the night unless you wake up and think, "Oh my god, this is a problem. I need to fall asleep again." It's like I won't be, rested when I wake up in the morning and I have this big presentation. I have to be rested. And then you're like,
Yeah,
forget about going to sleep. Forget
that's ex
about it.
that's exactly what she does. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm always relieved when I wake up in the middle of the night
Yeah.
and it's a few hours more to sleep. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's so nice. I can like, cuddle up and just
Yeah.
fall back into sleep. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's the perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, um it's a good reminder um to not just look at the problem, but to look at where am I standing when I'm looking at the problem? What's my point of view? What's my perspective? What's my beliefs? What's my conditioning? What's societal norms? What is influencing the
Mm.
fact that I make this into a problem? Um,
Yeah, I think it's performance. If you wake up, you can't perform later in the day, and then that becomes. I think that's the case. Could be the case that the performance culture that you can't just let go and just be present and, I can just go back to sleep rather than thinking about what's going to happen next. And then you worry yourself up. And there's some kind of performance there when I look at my wife. I hope she will not listen to this, me talking about her. But it's usually that you think about what's going to happen and the consequence of what's going to happen, not right there, right? Because the best thing you can do is actually go back to sleep.
yeah,
But you're thinking about all the things that you will be bad at because you woke up.
yeah.
So, I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind connecting it to performance anxiety in a way.
And I had years ago, I had um a couple of nights where I didn't go to sleep at all, which I might have done, but if you if you have micro naps, if you fall asleep and you sleep shorter than 15 minutes, your system actually don't remember you falling asleep. So even if I have a sleepless night, there might have been
Yeah.
little snippets of sleep, but generally not longer bouts of it. And I had 2 of those nights, and then I had a night where I slept, and I thought, "Oh, phew, wow, I'm safe." And then I had another one of those nights. But since then, I have that type of night now and again. I call them my event horizon nights because it always happens when I'm in a shift, when I'm in some type of I'm on the edge of a mental shift or an emotional shift or there's an insight that's coming so that I have a pivot, personal pivot of some sort. I rest. So I've stopped turning those sleepless nights into a problem because I rest. And I know that system works good enough on just resting. I don't have to sleep every night for 8 hours. The system is uh, robust enough to buffer a few
Yeah.
of those nights. And that has actually helped me quite a lot uh,
Well,
because it
if
means that I can do what you do without actually falling asleep.
yeah.
I can
Okay.
lay there and I can cuddle in and I can, it's nice and warm and it's dark and cozy and whatnot. And I can just be resting.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Well,
don't get myself worked up.
we all find our coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Are you in that shift right now?
Yeah. I am in that shift right now. I've had a couple of those nights. Um, and it's a sense of it's a little bit funny because it's turned into the Event Horizon nights being a sort of signal that, okay, I'm about, you know, it's about to come, it's about to happen. The shift is near. So they almost validate me. It's a sense of, oh, it's here, finally. Um,
Oh, so you want the shift.
I want the shift. Yeah.
Why? Tell me. This is so interesting. Tell me about the shift. What is it?
Well, this shift is it's my doing being shift. Um I've been building up towards this shift in therapy for a couple of well, probably since September or since February or something. So for quite a long time, I've been building up to a shift on doing and being where I spoke to Luke about it and I recorded with Bella before you and me speak. So there's parts of this in those conversations
Okay.
too. But I realized the I'm coming to see what happens in me when I'm doing very close to my being, when my actions are very tightly aligned with my being, so that there's more flow there, there is more me there, there is more life force there, as opposed to what happens when I'm doing much farther from the center of my being, much farther from my life force, where it's much more efforting and also much less relating or relationships because the doing being when it's close to me, that happens in situations where I belong, where all of me is not, you know, where all of me is welcome, not just tolerated. Um, so I'm looking at what I do for work and with whom I do it and what do I get from it and what's the cost if if I'm working with clients where it's more the doing and not so much or no being, what does that cost me as compared to what happens when I'm working with clients where my being uh,
So
is
when you
part of the magic in a sense.
so when you are in this state, what kind of superpowers arise, like reveal itself?
My ability to so I'm good at seeing bigger pictures. I'm good at connecting dots mm, and I can harbor quite a lot of data points. Um, and when I'm in that doing being place, the sensory instrument that is me is more attuned, it's more finely calibrated, it picks up on more. So I can make more accurate assessments and connections than if I'm in one of those, we're just interested in you for your doing. I'm a little bit I'm less fine-tuned. There are more blind spots in a place like that. And that ability of mine to hover, to connect dots and be quite quick and connect dots that I connect dots quicker than many others do. And I connect surprising dots. So it's not
Wow.
necessarily the okay, this is A leads to B leads to C. It's like, no, I see the connection between A and Q. It's like
Well,
s-
picture again is you sitting in one of those, like in front of the screen of a matrix, looking at those numbers falling down, and suddenly you see
yeah,
all the numbers that just rain down makes even more sense. You can see
yeah, yeah.
other underlying factors. That's the picture I get in my
Yes.
mind when you explain
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the feeling. I had one of those last week with a few of my colleagues in one of the projects that I'm working, where we had a question to answer, which was kind of we've come to a fork in the road. Do we go option A or option B? And how do we make this decision? Who makes this decision? Why do we make this decision? What's reasonable? What's rational? What's logical? What's best for all of the involved parties, etc. And we've been struggling with this for a few years in actuality, but it's like come to a head now. We have to make the decision. The fork of the road isn't, it's up ahead, it's here. And all of a sudden, I just knew the answer. We have to go with option A because there's nobody rooting for option B, even though that might be a more logical, long term logical, but it's too fraught with. Um, there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns in option B, and there's no strong stakeholder rooting for it. So it just clicked into place. It's like, this actually isn't an option. It's option A. The other one isn't even a contender here because nobody will call out for it. And it's just, okay, we thought that we would like be starting on this and now we have to struggle forever to try to find the answer. It's like, no, it's option A. That's the only viable option. And it was like that. I just bam, it's just there.
So when you get all the superpowers in place, since you're in this doing being kind of state, how are you gonna use them and do good?
I want to think that I use them to do good already. Um because I do try to be discerning with the type of companies I work with, the type of clients I take on. Um but I mean I also okay, so I struggle with this because I have been I've been too focused on being good and doing good that I actually need to throw in a little bit of bad. I need to throw in a little, or rather, I need to season the dish that is me with more of the edge.
So stir the pot a little bit.
Stir the pot, make
Yeah.
it a little bit spicier, a little bit sharper. And that is me welcoming on stage the darker parts of me, the um not necessarily the soft and cuddly parts. And I'm not known for soft and cuddly necessarily, but I am. And this is interesting. Thank you for asking this, because this actually ties in with the pivot that I'm about to, because in therapy for the last 6 months, there's been a lot of this as well. There's been a lot of this insight that I have been so focused on the light side of me that the dark side of me has been pushed down and not welcomed, and that's not a good thing, 'cause there's good things coming from that side as well,
It's really
which
yin
does
and
not
yang.
mean. Yes, precisely. It's yin and yang, because it isn't, oh, I'm going to go out and be I'm going to be a murderer, or I'm going to start to steal stuff or vandalize. It's like, no, not that, right? But to bring all of me. So yes, the yin and the yang. There's been too much of the one, and then you don't get the movement. Then you don't get the transformation that's possible when you do have both of them.
Yeah.
Um, So that is tied in with this doing being aspect. I hadn't made that connection, but I can see that now. Cuz that's part of the in that in circumstances and situations where the doing being is close together, where the doing comes from the being and the being comes from the doing, when they're like closely connected, all of me is welcome. The light and the dark, all of it is welcome. Out on the edges of the doing, far from my being, uh, it's much harder, because there I try to fit in, and I try to fit in with that good part of me.
It almost feels like you're describing a painting.
Yeah. It's very visual for me, those who are
Yeah.
actually looking at this. So, if nothing else, Tula will probably be looking at this. Um, it is very physical for me, and I think that's part of how I speak. I
Yeah.
speak with my body quite a lot. Um, and it helps me. Um, that's probably also one of those things that helps me use more of the sensory inputs. It helps me pick up signals from more data points can enter me
Yeah.
when I'm also gesticulating, or whatever it's called in English. Gesticulera.
Yep.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. But I think you need a little bit of darkness as well to understand things and underlying motivators and the reasoning behind. So, um, like in fairy tales, you always have the darkness against the lightness. Like you have
Yeah.
Disney movies,
Yeah.
classical villain, Star Wars, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
I think you're onto something. How can you make them like coexist and
Yeah.
help each other rather than fight each other in a
Yeah.
way?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And that's precisely it. I just rewatched Game of Thrones, the
Wow.
entire series.
Was it different the
Um,
second time? How was it different the second time to watching it? I don't mean you have to explain like the
no,
story. Just what
it was
for you.
there were less surprises, because I kind of knew, right? But still, it's 2 years since I watched it the first time around, and so I'd forgotten a little bit about the details and stuff, but it's still a spectacularly well made, uh, in all ways. The dialogue, the costume, the actual footage, it's like it is such a stunning uh, creation, and each episode is like its own little stunning creation, and then you just string them along and just wow. Um, but possibly I was a little bit more detached from it. There was a little bit more distance from it. It wasn't on my skin the way it was the first time I watched it.
You didn't go, "Oh my god, the red wedding, what happened?"
No, I knew that one was coming. But it's still, I mean, it is again, so Game of Thrones is such a good example on this, the good and the bad,
They
the
all have
light
that
and the
in.
dark, and how they all have it, and how that has been part of the struggle for me. It's like, oh, I'm not supposed to have the dark side. I'm just supposed to have the light and bright because I'm a good girl, etc. Right? So it is kind of up in my face. It's like, okay, nobody is all good. Nobody is all bad. We are this mix. The yin and the yang is present in all of us. So how do I use that in such a way that I'm not an absolute and complete total dickhead? Because there are plenty of absolute, complete, total dickheads um, in Game of Thrones as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to be like them. And in a sense, maybe the dark side has taken on. It's like the dark side is steering. I've had the light side steering, and what needs to happen is for me to be steering, a meta me that uses these rather than has one of them be in the driver's seat.
Helena, I don't think you have it in you to be a dickhead.
Oh, you're wrong. I definitely have it in me to be a dickhead.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
that would be so interesting to see that side of you.
Yeah, well, it's like, I'm not sure I will go so far as to let my inner dickhead out in public, at least. Uh, mm. But I am.
But why is it so? Maybe this is not the case with you, but with me it is. It's so much easier to let out the dickhead towards yourself or towards the really the ones that you love.
Yes,
That is
yes,
so sad. It's better to do it on other people that you don't know
yeah,
than rather than
yeah.
doing it on yourself and the ones that you love.
I think it's part of that belonging, fitting in thing. Because you know you belong. It's the same reason why
Mm.
kids can behave like abominably bad towards their parents. And then you think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to hand them over to grandparents or the neighbor or anything. And then they go to the neighbor to sleep over and they behave like little angels.
Yeah.
And you go, what the fuck? But it is that thing. They know they belong with you.
And they
So
will be
they
forgiving.
precisely. And I also think that's part of the way that we kind of go wrong, because then we put on our best behavior when we're trying to fit in.
Yeah.
And how does that really serve me? What happens if instead I don't know. Because it's like being a dickhead to your family when you come home after a stressed out day or something. Like, it's not good. You're not, it's like, that's not,
No.
even though you belong. It's like too much of that, and that family will soon be bust.
Yeah.
Um, so again, to temper that, to somehow be restrained also,
Mm.
but in a good way, not in a push down and pretend it doesn't exist kind of way. In a I'm taking the responsibility for this so that I won't take it out on you kind of way. How can I do that?
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the reasons why I should not live alone for forever and ever, because then I don't have to practice how do I take responsibility for this, because there's nobody here, so I can be that total dickhead. Even though nobody is affected by it, it still doesn't help me work me. Um,
Are you opening up to invite someone to live with you?
well, yeah, in a sense, even though there's no someone around. Um, but yeah, I've been single for 6 years now.
It doesn't necessarily have to be someone
6
that you have
years now.
a relationship with.
I
In
am. I have been,
could be a friend.
cause my youngest is now, living at his dad's permanently, so I have an extra room. So I've been thinking about letting that one out, which would be one way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm also, um,
Thinking about not being single anymore as well. Sounds like
yeah,
it. Yep.
yeah, yeah. I need to go out and dance more or something. Cause
Yeah. How do you do it these days? I
yeah,
was thinking
yeah,
if I ever got divorced or went into the game again, how do you play it? Like Tinder. Everybody talks about Tinder. I'm like, what? Is it
yeah,
yeah, like, how do you do it these days? And that thought sort of not to disencourage you, but it scared me a little bit. I'm like, "I
yeah.
better take care of what I have because I don't wanna
Yep,
end up there."
yep, yep. I think you're onto something good. Do take care of what you have. Tinder and Badoo and Happy Pancake and whatever they're called.
I know about
Um,
those, yeah.
it's like, mm,
Do people go out and, like, dance and meet like we used to do when we were younger? I don't know. How do you play the
well,
game?
I'm
We'll have, like
single, so I haven't cracked the code, but I think I think serendipity is the name of the game. You can find people to fall in love with anywhere. You can meet them on Tinder, you can meet them dancing, you can meet them on the bus, you can meet them, you know, taking your car to the repair shop. You can meet them in the grocery shop. You can meet them at work. You can meet them at the parent teacher association meeting. I mean, you can meet people everywhere or nowhere. Ah.
so so I have a question for you then.
Hmm.
You know the saying, "You can't love someone else until you loved yourself or until you love yourself." What does that mean to you?
So I
It's not
think
easy.
I probably take a different stance on that. What I read into that is nobody else will make me complete or whole or make my life perfect.
You just trashed all Hollywood movies.
Yes. But there's a little bit of edge there. And a lot of our language, the way that we have set up language actually buys into that Hollywood movie style. You make me complete. You make me happy. You're the love of my life. You're my missing half. Uh,
Soulmates.
you're my soulmate. All of these can kind of just lead to that, to the thinking that I'm half unless
Mm.
I find the other half. And it's like, no. And so what I read into that is when I'm whole, when I enjoy myself, I enjoy my life, I'm living, not surviving, I'm thriving, I'm living, I'm experiencing life and life force, then odds are that a meetup with someone else who's also whole,
So,
that can be a really interesting
but
dynamic.
when you're in that good place, do you want to risk it to alter it in a way?
Well, I have I do believe that we're not supposed to live alone. I
You,
really enjoy being alone and I need my alone time, but I actually don't think that that's what we're made for. We are made to live in, a little bit larger groups than the core family. Um, 15, 20 people in a close little community. That's what we're made for. Where you can go out and off and find your solitude when you need it. But then you don't have to carry all of the load, all of the responsibility, all of the chores, and all of the happiness without somebody to share it with as well.
yeah. So, do you believe we were made for monogamy only?
No.
That was a quick no.
Yeah. I've been giving this a lot of thought. I actually don't. Um, which is not to say that it's not what's right for some people. In my life, it has been what's been. I've I've not uh I'm not cheated that I know that I have, but then a friend of mine said, "Well, when you were young and a teenager and you had a boyfriend and then you fell in love with somebody else and you kind of started to make out a little bit with that one before you dumped the other one.
Yeah.
That's cheating." And I'm like, "Fuck, I'm a cheater." Um, but I think um monogamy is a construction created by a society that turned into a patriarchy where the legacy, the inheritance was made important. So I think monogamy is a way to kind of
Control.
also to control and also to clamp down on women and women's sexuality and sensuality and pleasure. So I think there's a lot of probably like reasons leading to this. It's monogamy is the thing. That's the law. Um,
That would be such an excellent, interesting master thesis work. Where does that come from?
yeah,
The opinion that monogamy is, because anything else is wrong. Being alone is wrong. Having more than one is wrong. The only way is having one.
yeah,
Where does that come from? Because that's a creation made up by us
yeah, yeah,
generations back.
yeah.
Where does it come from? Has it always been like that? Like, it's so interesting to deep dive into that, I guess.
Do you think it's always been like that?
No.
No. And I know it's not always been like that. And
How
there
do
are
you
still
know?
places, well, there are still places where it isn't like that. There's that really super fascinating documentary of this Chinese little hill tribe that's a matriarchy. And they're about to go extinct, basically. But they have a fascinating culture because monogamy is a culture. It's a cultural artifact. It's part of
Yes.
a culture. They have a different culture where the women are the ones who welcomes men into their beds or not, basically on a daily basis if they want to. The women live together, and the men of the village go around knocking on one of the women's doors if they fancy that woman, and she's allowed to say welcome in or no, thank you, not tonight. Um, And it sounds weird, but it's a fascinating culture, and the documentary is really great. I'll try to find it so that I can link to it because I don't remember the name of that tribe. It's being bastardized now, so it's like it's under a lot of pressure from surrounding culture, so it's falling apart. But before it started to fall apart, there was no sexual violence. Rape did not exist
Yep. Yeah.
because everybody knew that the women have the right to say yes or no. And if she says no, you go knocking on somebody else's door or you go home. Um, it's like and that's an interesting thing. How much of the other aspects of sexuality and how that is expressed in our society is a result of or a symptom of monogamy.
Yeah.
How much of sexual violence, how much of prostitution,
Abuse.
how much of abuse, how much of it's like it's it's really interesting. And there's a TED talk uh, on sex. Um, a man who speaks about it from like a long arc view of sex, like not just looking at the last 100 years, but looking at 100,000 years, like really taking a long view of it. Um, yeah, it's interesting, and I think a lot of I mean, it's become so popular with polyamory or ethical non-monogamy, ENM, um, where yeah, ethical non-monogamy, where both parties in the relationship are like agreeing. There's an agreement that it's okay to have
Ah,
sex with other people.
just like an open relationship in
It's
a,
an open relationship,
Okay.
precisely. So there's so much of that, and I think that right now there's probably there's an over there's a tendency to fall into that so much because it's popular at the moment. Um, I think that will kind of swing back and probably find where it's more. Uh, I think people are experimenting more with it because I mean polyamory. I think I probably heard that word for the first time. I don't know, 7, maybe 10 years ago. Before that, I'd never heard the word. Today, look it up. It's everywhere. There is podcasts and books and Facebook groups and whatnot. Um, so it's like it's come into the light. All of a sudden, this is a thing that we can talk about.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's good. The problem with that is it just strengthens those that are against it and, like get threatened by it. So it becomes polarized in a way. But
yeah,
that's natural, I guess, if you want
mhm,
developments, it has to hurt
yeah,
a little bit. But
yeah,
I think that's basically what happens out in the world. There's like a against
yeah,
reaction to
yeah,
globalization of,
yeah,
and then, like people like Trump, Brexit, Sverigedemokraterna, they suddenly they suddenly get this open field to
yeah,
um, do their thing and,
yeah,
and get their followers because it comes up
yeah,
against kind of a dilemma or a discussion,
yeah,
and we don't explore the gray areas. It just becomes so polarized, black and white. But what we're saying is, like it's in the gray that things. Let people do what they want to do, like, and it's
yeah.
quite liberal. But there's a movement now towards a traditional way, and if you look
And
at
I
in the
think,
world,
yeah, and I think this is part of like the event horizon experience for society on a larger
yeah,
scale. It's like because today you see lesbian and gay couples, or you do see star families, stjärnfamilj as it's called in Swedish, where there's more than Not necessarily two people in a relationship. It can be three or four or five or whatever, and they're all having a romantic sexual relationship with each other. Um, you know, 20 years ago, those uh, larger family constellations didn't exist. 30 years ago, did you ever see a man kiss another man on the street? No, you do today.
Yeah,
Um,
in some societies.
in this one, at
In
least.
ours, yeah, in ours, yes,
Yes,
yes. Yeah.
yes. So there is this. It's like I think that it is a more or less continuous. There's a forefront, and that forefront is always pushing something.
Yeah.
And 20 years after that forefront was on um, gay couples, it's much easier to be a gay couple today. I'm guessing that's my perception, at least, than it was 20 years ago or 100 years ago.
Even though it's not easy enough.
Even though it's not easy enough, but it wouldn't have been possible if somebody hadn't been on the forefront actually doing. I mean, pride parades and whatnot, it's all making room for other things, including the backlash.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
that's
bound to
what
come.
makes the movement, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
makes the shifts possible.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at history, every big event has always come from a single individual action
Yeah. Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. You can find the root cause.
Well,
Um,
the tipping point, the root
yeah,
cause, the tipping point,
yeah, yeah,
more.
yeah,
Like in Black history with the buses and
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't remember her name
Rosa
now.
Parks,
Rosa
Rosa
Parks, yeah,
Parks,
who was
yeah,
too tired to move back into the bus. What
yeah,
happened there
yeah,
with the Amini girl that was beaten to death because she didn't wear the,
yeah,
the thing on her head in the
yeah.
right way
The
in
hijab,
Europe? The
yeah,
hijab, yeah. You can like sort of pinpoint that
yeah,
moment where it just ignited all the
something, yeah,
explosives that come together and one event that sparked them all up.
yeah,
If Rosa Parks had done what she done like maybe 3 years earlier, maybe that wouldn't have happened. So it was just the right time at the right moment. I believe. But
yeah,
it was bound to happen somewhere
yeah.
because it was it was set up to go burst into flames in one action or something like that.
And this is interesting to link this to this aspect of how do you use your superpowers to do good in the world. It's like, what am I focusing on? What am I making possible? What am I open and inviting to? Where am I shut down and closed off? And this is how I think all of us on an individual level can also impact the greater um the energy of the movements that are coming, the like, what's actually happening in society. We're all a little part of that.
Yeah.
Um so that's one uh, one way of trying to be conscientious about how I am in the world. How do I show up in the world? And I've realized um, one of the things that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy um, teaching in a sense where I realize that that's how I do a lot of the work that I do. I mean, when I work professionally, there's a lot of documents involved. In the pharma industry or in the food industry, there's a lot of document. That's kind of part of my powers is this working with documents and making sure that the documentation is appropriate both for the company and for the regulator, and it's like so that it's good. I'm less and less the person writing the documents and more the person reviewing documents. And when I review documents, I noticed this just the other week. I was reviewing a handful of documents for a company. The comments I'm writing are written from a teaching perspective. I want the people who read that document, be it the author or the other people who've reviewed it or the people who are about to approve it, I want them to understand why I make my comment. I want them to start to think, hmm, if we do it this way, then that will affect these other things, and that might lead to this benefit over here. So I'm deliberately trying to be quite um I'm trying to be both clear in saying, how could you how could you do this in a different way? Or when you do it this way, it impacts that. And that's maybe not optimal, so that people start to think.
So
And
it's
I actually,
educational.
it's educational. It's like I want to help people become better at doing documents themselves so that when I get the next document from that place, it is it's
Yeah.
in a better starting position. And I did the same with I
So
have a f
why don't you teach on how to write documents?
well, I kind of do, but that's not what people hire me for, and I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody would hire me for that. I don't know if I would want to do that, but it's part of what I do. But I had a friend who is writing a book, kind of an environmental thriller, and I got one of the early copies of this one, and it was the
Aha.
same thing. 'Cause I was like, this sentence, it's not really clear. What is it that you mean? Can you rewrite the sentence?" Rather than me writing, I would write the sentence like XXXXX.
But
I'm
that's
saying, "How do you do this?" And we had a conversation, and he said, "Can you help me see? Can you give me a few examples of how you would rewrite that in a way that's clear or anything?" So I gave him a few example so that he could then see what was it that I was pinpointing, and then he can apply that to the entire book.
you showed them the code.
I showed him the code in a few instances, or one other code at least.
Yeah.
For me, it would make more sense if,
Mm.
or I feel estranged from the person when you write it like this. What if?
But you read a lot of books
I do.
and you read a lot of documents and make them more clear and educational. Maybe you should start being is that called an ed no, publish no, not publisher, editor when you read books and help authors to
Yeah, editor. I so here's the thing. I have friends who are also editors, and I have one of my friends, she does this, and she looks at documents or books differently than I do. So I don't I'm not interested enough to take the she takes on a greater meta perspective than I do.
okay.
So I'm that in between person. I can correct your grammar and pick up on, because I did do technical kortläsning when you review the text
Yeah.
itself for another book, and I noticed, at the first chapter, she wrote about the school she went to when she was a kid. 5 chapters in, she wrote about the same school, but it had changed names. My brain connects that. Hey, wait, didn't that school had that name? So I was like flipping, and it's like, yes, it's this. So I could pick up on that type of inconsistency and stuff, but I'm not editorial material.
Okay. But at least maybe you should help Ulrika tillsammans write a book because I think that would be a good seller.
Well, he's already written books.
Yeah, but more on the what the pod is about, like helping
Yeah,
ordinary households
yeah,
on
yeah,
thinking about the economy with
yeah,
all the buckets and all the
yeah,
things that he's talking
yeah,
about, like
yeah.
more along those lines.
That that I don't know if what the plans are with that book, but I know there's been conversations about that book, and I know Caspian has been involved in that
Yeah,
as well.
cool,
So
cool.
who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
Maybe it'll come
Yeah.
sometime. But it's fun to
You When I listen to
yeah.
you,
Mhm.
it's almost like you're rediscovering life in a way.
Yeah, but I am, and that's kind of what these event horizon pivots
Yeah,
do for me because it's like all of a sudden I reach a new
you level up.
I level up and I see things from a different
Yeah.
angle. My perspectives change.
I think that's
Uh,
the best thing about getting. Well, there's two good things, best things about getting older. One is that, and the other one is that you don't care as much as you used to do what other people think of you, and that is
mm,
so liberating.
mm.
Um, so I'm like, I can't wait getting older and caring even less about what other people think about me.
So how is that going then? Because we've been speaking about that before, that you're actually in some perverse way caring more about what
Oh,
people think about you.
yeah. Oh, that's a good one. It it goes ups and down, and I've noticed that it has to do with the sleep I get in
Mhm.
a way, and me taking care of myself. Like oxygen mask on myself first. Then it's
Yeah,
much easier to help
yeah,
other people around you in the right way. But
yeah,
it's when I don't do the oxygen mask, which is food, my time, training, sleep, those kind of basic needs.
mm,
Um, that's when I fall into the version that I don't want to be, which is not taking care of myself. Then
mm,
I'm not good at taking care of other people as well. Then it
mm,
becomes a burden to take care of people rather than um, a service
mm.
in a way. So that's one of my pivotal for the last like 6 months realizations in a way. Like, do take care of yourself. Then it's easier to take care of other people in the right way.
Mhm. So how do
Yeah.
you remember to take care of you?
When I've become the version that when I get input from myself that I'm not the best versions a few times in a very short span of time, I'm realizing, okay, there's something lacking. And then I do some kind of a self-service check. How I've been eating, how
Okay.
I've been sleeping, how I've been, and that I always find a red thread that everything is sort of not in the right service level. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let's go back to basics and start doing this service on myself, like getting the sleep, starting with the right food, getting with the training, and following that, and then I get shift myself back onto the right road again
Mm. Mm.
when I go off road.
And I actually think this is one of the reasons why we're not supposed to live alone
Yeah.
because people can
Yes.
become so low on their service level that
When
they
they're on.
one don't even notice it. They don't have the wherewithal to actually be observing. They can't take the meta perspective, or they're so um down or low on energy that even though they see I should take a walk, they can't get out the door. But
You
if
know,
there's
you know,
somebody there then that says, "I'm gonna take you out for a walk,"
yeah,
and you go for a slow walk around the
or you are
neighborhood.
yourself, like you said, and pick too many fights and go, why do we have so much fights? And then suddenly you realized, well, actually, I'm the one starting them. Then I don't feel good. So you get that. I think as well. That is a really, really good, like a really good analysis from you. Like it's the people around you that bounce back information to you on how you
Yeah,
feel.
yeah.
That is so interesting because sometimes my wife takes the kids and goes to her parents, and I'm like alone for a week. Oh, I pretty much don't sleep, don't eat, don't I don't know what I do, but I'm just doing what I to think that I need at the moment, which is the wrong things, because I don't have the information to bounce back. That is so interesting. I've never thought about it that way. Yeah.
Pia Sundhage, who was the soccer team leader for the Swedish ladies or whatnot, she says,
Brazil,
"Vi
US, the many countries. Yeah.
precisely, precisely. Vi gör varandra bra.
Yeah.
We make each other good." And I think that's precisely that thing.
Yeah.
It's like I need, when I'm mirrored, I get feedback to me. And if I don't have the resources to take care of me, I can be helped to take care of me by
Yeah.
somebody who cares for me. Um, I was saying that on Twitter the other day to people who were talking about, being depressed or anxious, or it's like these, like you say, these coping mechanisms. How do I survive, how do I care for
Yeah.
myself strategies, and it's so easy to kind of just try to find those strategies for me without realizing that, okay, I can actually, if I live with somebody else, they can help me
Yeah.
to
Giving
get
bounce
up or
information.
to go to bed or to cook a meal for me, or,
Yeah. What?
massage my feet or take me out for a walk or whatever it is that I need that I'm not capable of giving myself.
Yeah. That is so true. And the reason why we maybe have so much depression in our country here in Sweden is we are a people that think that living on your own is the right way sometimes.
Yeah.
Like maybe we're because I don't know if there's any other country has as many single households as we have in the northern countries, but we also have high suicide rates, depressions, people burnt out.
Yeah.
Is that because you're not because we are collective, we are tribal animals
Yeah.
in a way, but
Yeah.
we sometimes tend to live, the older people that we have in the rooms
Yeah.
that don't get the visits, like when I Turkey, I have a Kurdish heritage,
Mhm.
and it's slowly becoming more westernized, but
Mm.
still they don't understand how we just leave our parents in a home and not take care of them because they take care of us. Maybe we are too developed as a society. We've forgotten what we really, how we are built and what we are programmed hundred thousands of years back, and what we
Precisely.
need in a way.
Precisely. Precisely.
Mm.
And it is those relations, it is those connections, it is, I think they provide a lot of the reason for living in a way, because
Yeah.
I matter. Somebody else needs me to be there, if only because I make them smile, or I
Well,
help them
yeah,
cook a meal, or
I
we
would take
go
it
for a
one.
walk.
I would take it one step back, even for matter. Like I exist,
Yeah,
even because that is the reason why we say hello to each other. To see, I see you.
yeah,
That's
precisely,
where hello it
precisely.
comes from.
Yeah,
So when you go to workplace and people don't say hi to you, it's like you don't exist, and then you start thinking,
yeah,
what if I disappeared tomorrow? Would
yeah,
anyone
yeah,
would anyone care? Would anyone know?
yeah,
So not matter, but the step before that, do
yeah,
I exist even?
yeah. Yeah, it's an I think that we have created a society that isn't very good for many of us. There's a
Yep.
lot of there's a lot of technical advances. Materialistically, we live very well if you look at the
But we
history of humanity for
yeah,
3 million years. It's like materially, we've got it down
but
pat.
do we
Many of
feel
us.
well? Do we feel well?
Precisely, precisely. And how much has you know, how much does the technical advances help us or stop us? And I was yesterday or the day before, I read this Per Axbom, who's an acquaintance, digital savvy person. I picked up on a blog post of his where he's written down why he has left algorithm-based social media such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all
TikTok.
of these, TikTok, all of these. So he's on Mastodon, which is not algorithm based. And his first example, I'll link to it and I'll send it to you as well. His first example was somebody on Facebook who realized that one of her, if it was one of her former friends or former colleagues or something, had died. She realized a month after he died. And she was friends with him on Facebook, but Facebook he'd gotten sicker and sicker. So he had engaged less and less, which meant that algorithm says, okay, no, we won't show any of his stuff in your feed. So she didn't know that he was sick.
That is so sad.
So precisely, so her take on it was, fuck, what if he died thinking that nobody cared for him? When
Mm,
it's the algorithm is the one who doesn't care for him because he's not engaging enough. So
yeah.
we'll discard you and put somebody else in her feed. That was just bam. That's a really hard thing to think about. And he had a couple of other examples. So he's like, oh man, there's a lot of stuff in tech, in society, in how we live that has consequences that aren't apparent to start with.
No,
And those can serve or not serve. And the more aware of those I am,
this is so interesting. When I was in Turkey the other week, I spoke to someone and we spoke about like smoking. And I remember when I was little, we used to travel to Turkey on airplanes, and my dad went back in the plane and pulled the curtain and smoked and came back. That was disgusting. But then I asked that, and then we asked each other, what is today's smoking behavior
yeah,
that we will look back on and think, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. Like we went
yeah,
to
yeah,
a curtain in the back of the plane and smoked and then pulled the
yeah,
curtain as if that was okay.
yeah,
What are we doing today that is equivalent of that behavior?
yeah,
And I think what you're saying right now is that like we in 10,
yeah,
20 years, we're going to look back and see how can we surrender our lives to an algorithm?
yeah,
Like that is almost psychologically, almost as physically damaging as smoking was in an airplane.
yeah.
If you
Or maybe
understand what I'm,
even worse.
or maybe even
Maybe
worse.
even worse.
Yeah. Like maybe that is today's smoking that we will look back
Yeah,
on in 20
yeah,
years or 50 years
yeah.
and look back like, what were we
How?
thinking?
How could we? Yeah,
Yeah. Or the way we smoke the planets, like the climate and all that. Like, sometimes we are so good at judging our history, but we don't look at where we are right now because we're
yeah.
creating our history as we
Right
speak.
now. Yeah,
So how do we avoid thinking back on our history and course correct here? And I think you're onto something there with the social media thing, like surrendering our way of engaging with other people to an algorithm.
yeah. And how much of I was one of the other examples that hit me hard because I've done this is I know that the algorithm punishes with bunny ears if you post a link to another site. So on Facebook, I used to post a link to my blog posts, and that was it. People could
Yeah,
click and go.
it
And then
punishes
it's
that.
like, it punishes that because it doesn't want you to leave Facebook. Okay, so then I started to post the actual blog post
And
and
then
put
conversation.
put precisely, and then I started to do that and say link in the comments. I've done that with the pod episodes as well. And here's the thing. For people like me who have eyes to see, that's easy. But if you're visually impaired, navigating Facebook when everybody says link in comment makes it harder. That's one
Yeah,
step of that's an obstacle that I put in their place, in their way. And it's like, why is that not my concern? Why isn't my concern how can I make this as
mm,
accessible for as many people as possible? Why am I catering to the needs and desires of the algorithm?
yeah.
And I
But
just
do
went,
you
"Oh my god, I'm gonna stop saying link in comments. I will screw it. I won't." And same thing. I have for the past year and a half, I've been trying to write alt texts when I post an image. On Twitter, it's getting to be fairly easy. You put up a photo and you click the little alt text button. You write a description of what that picture is. Also for people who have issues seeing. On Mastodon, it's even easier. On Instagram, it's fucking hard. And Instagram is based on visual, but there's actually a lot of people on Instagram who don't see. So on Instagram, if I make a post, I upload a photo, I write my text, I have to scroll down, find alternate whatever it says, alternative options or you know, something else. Click that one, then click will add alt text, and then I can write the alt text. It's like they're really not pushing for that.
no.
Um, so it's like there's so many ways where I'm just ignorant. I don't recognize, I don't see, I don't connect dots until somebody writes, like Per did, writes this piece, and I go, huh. And then I will shift my behavior, trying to choose what's good in my view,
Yeah,
tying it back to that thing again.
yeah. Yeah, we're in the grasp of the multicultural, not multicultural, the big companies in a way, and like
Yeah,
how do we break ourselves free? Well, it's like you do in a way, go against the the rules, or not the rules, go against the benefits, even
yeah,
though they are not the long term benefit in a
yeah,
way.
yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. So interesting to see what will come of it, what it will turn into. And what's the cost? What will it cost us? Because, I mean, the internet as such is still a fairly new. I mean, in the long arc of things, it's a blip.
Yeah,
Uh, right? If you look at 100,000 years, it's a blip. It's not even a blip. It's a blip, right? It's such a small little thing.
but it still impacts us so amazingly
Yeah,
right here where we are right now.
yeah,
It's
it
like,
does.
invention of fire, but
Yeah,
this just, like it just went massive in a few years.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll see what happens with that. You know what, Aslam? This is our fifth conversation.
Yeah, it's a bit sad in a way.
It is, isn't it? And you know what? This is my last fifth conversation for the season. I've recorded all of the other ones.
Oh, so you are going out with a bang with me.
I'm going out with a bang with you. Yeah. I have then we have the two group conversations
Saturday?
Saturday. Yep. Um but it's been as always, I do have that. I've already started both um the fifth conversations that are already out when we're recording this. It's like that sadness is part of it. And it's a closing of one door and an opening of another. And I think it's good that there's a little bit of sadness in it because it means that it matters to me.
Yeah,
If I was indifferent to it, well, why would I be doing it?
I
Um,
agree.
so it does hold a lot of value.
You know, when I had the first conversation with you and you revealed, well, we are gonna have 4 more. I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And now I feel like we could have 50 more. We could have
Yeah.
it's so
Yes.
easy when you like get into it. And it's like we don't
Yeah.
always train ourselves, I guess, or exercise ourselves to just talk about nothing and see where it leads. And then
Yeah.
leads to beautiful places. It doesn't
Yeah.
have always have to be, you know, like a clear agenda and bam, 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 and done.
Yeah.
Um, and we don't do enough of that. Just sit down and take our time and just listen to each other. And I think this format is great because it's um, sort of positively forces you to be creative in the conversation topics without letting go of the letting go of the control, not having a structure, and just see where it leads. It leads to beautiful places that
Yeah.
I never thought I would go. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my take on it as well. And I've had so many of these now. I'm upwards of this is the 79th that I'm recording. So it definitely has an impact on my life outside of these conversations because it can't not impact me.
Yeah.
Um, so I do I have a lot of benefit. There's a lot of benefits in my life from having these conversations with all of you, which is good. But we will see how the group conversations will be.
Yes, I'm looking forward to
Yes,
that.
I am too. So I hope that you make a great day, my friend.
You too.
Yep.
And see you in a couple of days.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
I hope that you listen to this podcast and enjoy it. I hope that you listen to the other ones as well, giving each and every person the benefit of the doubt, because all of the people that I have these conversations with differ. Everybody is unique, everybody has their ownliness, which also helps to flavor the conversations. Of course, that's the way it should be. And this is my third season uh, of these meandering conversations. So there's plenty of episodes to go back and listen to. But there's more. Even further back in the podcast feed, you have me reading my blog posts of Doing Gentle that I then turned into the ebook and audiobook of Doing Gentle with an Edge. And those little episodes are quite different. I don't think any one of them is longer than 6 minutes, so that's a big shift. But there's some really good ones. So if you feel like getting tankesbjörn, but in a more concentrated form, flip to the beginning of this pod feed and see if there's anything of value there for you.